How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech, and also to my look at the Aorus Z790 Master with the crazy new Intel Raptor Lake i9-13900K, the most powerful and then also most hungry consumer-grade CPU that you can kind of currently get. But all of that in this nice little wide system here that I built along with the RTX 4090 gaming OC from Gigabyte. So a nice full out a package here, and now you guys can also see just how massive this thing is. Now, I have already done an unboxing on this board, so if you want to see that, you can also go check that out. But now, finally, we can add some performance and also temp numbers. Pricing-wise, first, the Master is retailing for around $500 currently, or around 10,000 Rand for here in South Africa once there's actually stock, because it's entirely out of stock where I've seen. Now, for the i9-13900K, it is retailing for around $660 on Newegg, or 13,000 Rand again for here in South Africa. So it's going to be a pretty pricey combo, but it's definitely going to perform extremely well, which we'll get into. Now, just before we begin, are you planning to upgrade to the new Z790 and a 13th generation Intel systems, or are you sticking with your current setup, or maybe even upgrading to something else? Let me know down in the comments below, because I'm pretty curious to know what everybody's planning to do with all of the new hardware being released. Now, like I mentioned in the unboxing video, I have done a couple of Master board reviews, and this one does keep the Master name high as well as the weight. This is an extremely heavy board, so do make sure that your case is up to snuff for that, but you do get a bunch of heat sprayers and also support on the back and so on, so it's no wonder it's so heavy. The black and gray color schema works along with the RGB on the IR cover, which does look very nice as well, not being too over the top. Now, the new Z790 platform does feature the same LGA 1700 socket as we got on the Z690 platform, and both are interchangeable with the motherboard and the CPU, so you can use a 12th gen on the Z790 and a 13th gen on the Z690. Now, as for our CPU, the i9-13900K is going all out, which is awesome, but that also comes at a high price, which we'll go over a bit later. But being as it is a K, it allows us to do some manual overclocking to get a bit more performance out, have some bit of fun there. But that's also if you kind of live in the Antarctica, because again, we'll get into that. Now, the 13900K has 24 cores and 32 threads, 8 of which are performance cores and 16 are efficient cores. The performance cores has a base clock of 3 GHz and a boost of 5.3 GHz, while the efficient cores has a 2.2 GHz base and 4.3 GHz boost. Now imagine that, 4.3 GHz on the efficient cores. A while back that would have been like a crazy turbo boost. However, now thanks to thermal velocity boost and also turbo boost max 3.0, it can even boost the performance cores higher up to 5.8 GHz. But now that is if, and that's a really big if your cooling is good enough. Again, we'll get into that. As for the VRMs, it is a 20+1+2 105 amp phase digital VRM setup, which is plenty. Even for the i9, you're boosting up to that 5.8 gigahertz or even over. But once we get into the cooling numbers and everything, it had no problem staying cool at all with the i9. So no need to worry about VRM temps. Now, moving into a memory, the Master supports a maximum of 128 gigs on the 4 dual channel DDR5 DIMM slots with overclocks up to a very tasty 8,000 megahertz. Now, do note that only the elite boards do have DDR4 board options currently. So if you want to go more for budget range, then that's going to be an option for you. But all of the boards higher than that is going to be DDR5. But now for our review here, Kingston sent over their Fury Beast RGB DDR5 32 gig kit with speeds up to 5,600 MHz CL40. Unfortunately, that's not the 8000 which the board can support, but it's still plenty enough, especially for the price point. It looks great and performs as well, so a big shout out to Kingston for providing the RAM for our video. Now, if you want to see a more motherboard or CPU video, subscribe, because I do have a few more to come, especially on this channel and then also on the second channel, which will be linked below. Now, dropping down, we have 3 PCI Express slots, with the top slot being a PCI Express Gen 5 X16, while the bottom 2 are PCI Express Gen 3 running at X4 and X1 speeds, which does sound like a bit of a downgrade, but we'll get into the reason why. And honestly, it's not that big of a problem, because most of the times you're going to use your top slot for your graphics card, and the rest is just going to be for some additional add-on cards, or maybe like a capture card or so on. So it's not really that needed. Also, all 3 do feature their armor design for a better dealability, which is, yeah, again, definitely needed for a heavy card like this 4090. So it definitely helps with just preventing the board from bending, and also your PCI Express slot from bending as well. So yeah, it's needed. Also, I'm very happy to see that they have their easy latch button, which just makes popping out your GPU so much simpler, where you don't need to try and fit your finger in between that massive heat spreader for your M.2 and also your GPU. So that definitely is going to help me out once I need to remove this graphics card. Now then, as for storage, you do get a whopping 5 M.2 slots. The top one being a Gen 5 and the other 4 Gen 4. So yeah, that is kind of where all of the bandwidth was needed compared to the PCI Express slots. Now also, all 5 are under heat spreaders, especially the top M.2 having this massive cooler, which we hope will keep the Gen 5 M.2's temperatures in check, but we currently don't know, so it should probably be enough. Now, all 5 do also feature a ASUS's easy quick release latch, which does make installing M.2s again just so much simpler, no needing to worry about filling with screws or losing your screws and so on. So just install, lock in place, and that's pretty much it. Now then, also just finally, you do get 4 SATA 3 ports, all 4 of them being at 90 degrees on the side, so you do have those as well. Now, something worth mentioning is that if the top M.2 is being used, the top Gen 5 PCI Express slot will only run at X8 speed, which is still comparable to Gen 416, so they do share a bandwidth between the two, so just something to keep in mind. Now, for our I/O, you do have a very good set here at the back with your clear CMOS button, BIOS flashback button, Wi-Fi 6E, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, 7 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, your DisplayPort, 3 USB Type Cs, 2 of them being at 20 gigabits per second and 1 of them being 5 gigabits a second. You get a 10 gigabit Ethernet port, which I'm very happy about. So later on, your audio connections, and unfortunately no Thunderbolt port on the back, but you do have it internally on the board. Now, for that on-board headers, you do have your dual 8-pin CPU power, your Q code, your power button, Q LED button, your reset switch, your USB headers, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A headers, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C header, your Thunderbolt header as well, 2 5V and 2 12V RGB headers, and 10 PWM headers, 2 of them being at 90 degrees on the side. Now, just before we get into the fun stuff, if you have any idea of a product you would like me to feature here on the channel, whether it's a review, a comparison, a build, or whatever, then tag me and the brand in a tweet, and I'll see if I can get that arranged for you. Alrighty then, let's jump into the fire. Firstly, the 13900K is extremely fast, sharing blows with the 7950X in all of our tests, and that is even with it thermal throttling most of the time. So if you can keep it cool at that 5.8 gigahertz, then it would absolutely destroy pretty much everything. Now, for the gaming benchmarks, I have not tested all of my previous CPUs with the RTX 4090 system yet, so unfortunately I can't show the result for games, but it'll definitely be in the top 2 fastest, again being between the 7950X and the 3900K. But for all of the non-gaming benchmarks, we can just see that it absolutely destroys all of the previous CPUs. Unfortunately, I didn't have the 12900K to benchmark as well, but just compared to the 12700K, even overclocked, it just absolutely destroyed everything. So yeah, it's doing quite well, even while thermal throttling. Now, getting into that cooling. So I paired it up with my Corsair H100i Elite LCD, which is a really good cooler, but it's only a 240mm AIO. And it had an extremely hard job at keeping the 3900K in check, unfortunately. In every non-gaming run, the CPU thermal throttled over 95 degrees down to between 5 GHz and 5.2 GHz. In games, it was a lot better, averaging around 60 to 70 degrees, but of course then it doesn't utilize all of the CPU. It is worth mentioning that I do not have an aircon in the room, so I had an ambient temperature between 18 to 22 degrees, and that was at night when it was the coolest, because it's summer here, so it does get extremely hot, 33 degrees upwards here in this room. So yeah, I also actually added a big desk fan to help just cool the system a bit more when doing some of the runs, so that helped out a tiny bit, but not unfortunately too much. So a minimum of a 360mm AIO is going to be needed, as well as extremely low ambient temperature, and that's probably not even going to be enough to keep this i9 in check when running at over 5.8 GHz, especially if you want to do again some manual overclocking. So it's finally time for them to make an LN2 all-in-one liquid cooler, because otherwise you're not going to keep the CPU in check properly. Now, as for our VRM temps, it was extremely low, only peaking at around 40 degrees if the readouts from HW Info was correct. As for our power, thanks to my upgraded 2000 watt platinum power supply from Cooler Master, I had a lot of issues with the 4090 here, just drawing a lot of power as well, and now with the 3900X as well, drawing the same amount. My 700 watt power supply just wasn't enough. So for the i9, it has a base rated power consumption of 125 watts and a turbo up to 253 watts. But that wasn't the case at all. So I constantly saw a power draw at around 325 watts. And even on some occasions when the temperature was okay, it reached just below 400 watts. So combining that with the, again, already hungry 4090, even a 1000 watt power supply probably won't be enough. So you'll have to go for something like a 2000 watt, which is overkill completely, but you never know in a couple of years how power hungry these things are getting. Alright, so now that we have all of that out of the way, the i9 13900K is certainly a wild beast. If you can contain it, it will just devour everything. But again, the if is going to be the biggest factor here. But one of the best ways to do that is by getting a proper board like the Master here. Like the previous Master boards, I'm not disappointed at all here. You could get a proper set of VRMs, you get a very nice set of I/O, enough M.2s for the rest of your life. You also get your PCI Express Gen 5 for your SSD, and then also your GPU for future proofing. So you're pretty much set for a couple of years here. But now that's pretty much it for my look at the Aorus Z790 Master, along with the i9 13900K, along with the RTX 4090 gaming OC from Gigabyte as well. Just a freaking crazy combo here. Definitely the most powerful system that I have tested ever. But all of that does come at a cost with power draw and cooling and all of that. But it was definitely a fun experience just going all out and testing everything. So big shout out to Gigabyte for sending all of these over for our video of Kingston for the RAM. So if you want to get any of these products for yourself, I will leave a link in the video description towards the website where it's going to show all of the components, and then also for all of the different countries, so definitely check that out. But now if you do have any questions, leave a comment below, but the best way is either going to be tweet at me or join the Discord server link below as well, where I or somebody else will be able to help you out there with any questions that you really have. But now that's pretty much it. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and comment like always. I'll check all of you guys next time. Cheers, guys.